joining in now. We have a great webinar today that we're going to present to you. So thank you to everybody for tuning in to participate. We will be kicking off shortly. We just have a few more folks that are trickling in here with our numbers going up. We're going to be talking about a very fast, awesome mapping software solution that folks know as SkyeBrowse, and it is doing great things within the public safety space to help support accident reconstruction investigations, as well as situational awareness agencies in regards to pre-planning for larger locations, or even protests and counter protests as we saw in the middle of this year. So it looks like we've got folks have kind of come in now, so we'll go ahead and start this webinar off. I am Paul Rossi with 910 Drones based in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I promise that I will try to get the screen share to work correctly this time. I'm going to share screen one, and I'm going to open up and present our slideshow. So now we should be seeing this slideshow in its full entirety. And as mentioned, this is the Success Stories with SkyeBrowse webinar. Got a little chat, maybe some confirmation. All right, thank you. So we're going to start things out here during the next hour. We're going to go through a couple things. We're going to start out with a live mapping demonstration to show folks, anyone that's not familiar with SkyeBrowse, what it looks like, how it all happens. We're going to do that. Then we're going to introduce each of our panelists who are joining us here today. Once we've done our introductions, we're going to jump into some different success stories, and we're going to show you guys the actual maps and models that have been created and how those provided useful data and information to support investigations and to support follow-on decision-making. Once we talk about those different success stories, we're going to have a question and answer segment where you can ask your questions about SkyeBrowse in general, or to any of our panelists about how they're integrating this mapping solution into what they do. And we're going to end the day out with a closing and just getting final thoughts from everybody. So without further ado, let me go ahead and switch video. And Bobby, if you want to go ahead maybe and just talk a little bit over the flight gear.
The flight gear. So Paul,
the flight gear. I said flight gear.
Oh.
You heard me say flight gear.
Oh, flight gear. Yes. So what Paul has is the SkyeBrowse app. It's updated to the latest version. He's got a Mavic 2 Pro currently running it, and he just armed the motors, and he just took off right here. On the top, you see a little red bar that says you have to be higher than 16 feet to enable SkyeBrowse. Paul, I believe you need to calibrate your compass because the height on the bottom is not updating. So either reset the drone by turning it off or turning it back on, or exiting out of SkyeBrowse and then entering SkyeBrowse again. 5 stars for SkyeBrowse. That's right. So we'll just open up SkyeBrowse again, wait for the drone to be connected. So this is the workflow. You open up the SkyeBrowse app. It gives you a nice little tutorial on what to do right there, and everything looks good. Distance and height seem to be updating. Yep, and so he just armed the motors. He's taking off right now. There's a red bar on the top middle part that says you have to be higher than 16 feet to fly SkyeBrowse. And the reason is that we don't want to hit into any like tankers or tractor trailers or anything like that. So this is designed purely for public safety. So now all you have to do is fly directly above the scene that you want to map out. In this case, this is a car in Paul's yard. And if you tap the bottom right, you can also see a map view. And it's really cool because it shows you, and if you zoom in a little, it'll show you the drone flight pattern. This changes based off of how high you are. So Paul, if you were to just increase in altitude, you can see that the orbit pattern gets bigger. So this gives you a lot of confidence in making 3D models so that you know exactly what your drone's going to do based on how high you fly. And also it shows you your drone's heading as well as its previous path in yellow right there. So once you're above the scene, let's say about 40, 50 feet, make sure you want to clear all other objects like light poles, power lines, or anything like that. And just scan around. And this is one of the benefits of SkyeBrowse. You don't have to just estimate how high your drone flies and just put in, say, like 50 feet so you can actually scan it. So in this case, we are clear of power lines. On the top right, you also have a blue button. If you tap it, it goes immediately downwards. It pitches the gimbal down to -9 degrees. And if you tap it again, it pitches it to 0 degrees. So this is really helpful for flying directly above whatever you want to map out. And it seems that all other obstacles are clear. So then let's get her done. Tap SkyeBrowse. And just like that, the drone just starts an autonomous mission with the flight path as described on the bottom right-hand corner. The drone's gathering all sorts of drone data. It is automatically calibrating its camera for the best results. It's recording video by itself, and it's doing some autonomous flight patterns around the area. Now that we've cleared the power lines, we don't have to worry about them. They'll get a little close, but nothing to worry about right there. And you can see that the drone is flying a perfect circle around that scene that you've flown directly above. On the left-hand corner, you also have a stop button now. The SkyeBrowse button turned into a stop button. So in the case that you need to emergency stop the drone, if you need to kill switch it for, say, a search and rescue mission, and this 3D model isn't as important, you can stop it. And what happens is it stops recording video. It freezes the drone at its current location, and you have full control over the drone again. So everything's designed for peace of mind when you're making a 3D model. When the drone's flying by itself, you only have 2 buttons. The record video button on the right-hand side is actually purely cosmetic. We designed it so you don't accidentally click on record video. If you choose to manually record video, you still can with the RC. So if you want to, say, map something out underneath a structure, like an overpass or something like that, you can still manually fly your drone underneath it. However, for the best results, we do recommend just tapping SkyeBrowse. And in about 90 seconds total, so in about 5 seconds from now, the drone will stop recording video. It'll pitch its gimbal upwards. You'll actually get a tactical vibration, which you can't see over Zoom, but it vibrates, telling you that the mission is complete. And this is designed so that if you're at an accident scene and it's controlled chaos, you're not looking at the drone, you're not looking at the RC, you'll know that the mission is complete. And once you're done with that, just fly your drone back and you've made a 3D model. 90 seconds, 1 button press, designed just for public safety. So that's a SkyeBrowse right there. But we've also had a few questions. What about long range mapping? Well, we'll go over that as well. So once you've landed your drone, we can just exit out.
And Bobby.
Hello.
With the mention of long range mapping and the amount of time that took, do you want to try to just show wide browse quickly, or?
Yeah, we don't have to necessarily tap the wide browse button. What if we just like a screen share to show?
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay, so real quick, you just tap exits and go back to wide browse. Once you're there, just gives you a quick tutorial. We can skip that, and I will be your tutorial. So it shows you where you are, where your drone is, and a highlighted area of what's going to be mapped out. So you can pinch to zoom, pinch out to zoom out. You have slider bars on the right-hand side and the bottom side for precision tuning of your 3D map. So instead of having to set all these geopoints, you just draw a box around the area just like that. There's also a previous flights button, which may put you at a different location. But in the case you need to map the same place out over and over again, you can tap previous flights and it'll load your saved flight patterns there as well. And it's the same exact workflow. You just tap wide browse to enter into the camera view, fly your drone directly above the area. No need to right now. But once you've flown, in this case, above 100 feet, you tap wide browse, it'll fly the mission, and that's about it. We also have side scan on the top left. By toggling that on, this is more for like tall buildings and like skyscrapers. It'll capture the sides of the buildings as well. And if you were to tap previous flights right now, and then choose the top one, it will populate your previous flight that you chose. So this is really good for like mapping out the same place over and over again, be it a structure that you're monitoring over time, or say if you're looking at a riverbank that may be flooding a lot, then you want the same exact flight, you'll get the same exact 3D model with that feature as well. So that's wide browse. That's the gist of our platform. Really easy 3D modeling. There's not a lot of explanations necessary for it.
Hey, Bobby, can you explain briefly the hazmat portion of that for slope?
Yeah, absolutely. Do we want to talk about, that's in the 3D model viewer, not the flight app. Do you want to talk about that when we're showing the 3D models?
All right, so I'm going to switch back my camera here. You go to gallery view. So for those of you tuning in, that, as Bobby mentioned, is the software. That's the app. That's the collection portion. That's kind of straightforward. I had to go power the drone off. Might have tuned out. I know you mentioned the hazmat. We were talking about basically diving into some of these success stories. Let me go ahead. Before we do that, we're going to introduce everybody. So that was our live demo. Now we're going to introduce our panelists who are going to be sharing their SkyeBrowse success stories with us and with all of you. Sergeant Curley, I wasn't sure on the exact location. I had drawn a blank. So we'll have you throw it in there. But I'll start out with Commander Clay Regan, who's with the Midlothian Police Department in Texas. On here we have it saying as a United States Air Force reservist, but I do believe today was a very big, exciting day, a day of retirement from the Air Force for Commander Clay Regan. So we're excited to have you here. Could you just unmute yourself and tell the folks tuning in a little bit about who you are, who you're with, and how you're involved with SkyeBrowse?
Yes, sir. My name, I'm Clay Regan. I'm a commander with the Midlothian Police Department in Texas, just in Ellis County, located just probably 18 miles south of Dallas. I've been there a few years. I retired out of Bedford Police Department before that. Have been flying UAS there as well. I am part of PSERT, North Texas Public Safety Unmanned Response Team in North Texas, responded down to Hurricane Harvey. And we've been using quite a bit of SkyeBrowse to map various instances, pre-planned events, post events, obviously accidents, just a whole range of things. And we're also starting to use it with to provide this to insurance companies for some of our money spent on the program.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. And next, I want to introduce Sergeant Michael Curley with the Garden City Police Department. And Sergeant Curley is also a United States Army veteran.
Yes, I'm with the Garden City, Kansas Police Department, right on the southwest corner of Kansas, right above Oklahoma, and just east of Colorado a little bit. We've been using old school methods to reconstruct accidents for years. We finally got KDOT to sponsor a drone program. Successfully, we now have, I think, and don't quote me if, a rough estimate is 8 drones total now for our program, one specifically specialized in accident reconstruction. And then we got SkyeBrowse and KDOT to pay on our annual contract for it. So.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for joining us, and certainly looking forward to seeing how you're leveraging SkyeBrowse with that accident reconstruction. And then we have with us Officer David Salomon, Little Elm Police Department, and David is in addition to being involved with drones, is also a certified private pilot with his instrument rating. So thanks for joining us, David.
Thank you for having me. Like you said, I'm David Salomon. I'm a police officer for the Lone Police Department. I'm also a school resource officer for the department. The police department is located in Denton County, just north of Dallas, about 15 miles north of Dallas, Texas. I previously, prior to joining the Little Elm Police Department, I was with the Dallas Police Department for 28 years. There, they didn't have a drone program, so it was really interesting to see a drone program with a smaller police department. I jumped on board just as quick as I could, having been a private pilot, like you said. Currently, we're using SkyeBrowse for pre-planning as well as post-planning. For me as a school resource officer, the worst case scenario would be a school shooting, mass casualty incident. So I started collecting the data of all the schools within our agency. I think we have around 15 to 20 schools total between elementary and high school. And we're mapping out the exterior of all the buildings to use in case of an emergency.
Excellent.
Pretty much it for me.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us, and looking forward to seeing in more detail what it is that you guys are doing there at the Little Elm Police Department. So now let's go ahead and we're going to dive into the SkyeBrowse success stories. I'm going to stop sharing and let's start out. Bobby, you got it up there on your computer. Where do we want to start with talking about SkyeBrowse and drone mapping simplified? You are on mute, just in case you were talking.
I have Sergeant Curley's 3D model right here. So, Sergeant, if you may, you can go ahead and talk about this.
Sure. So let me preface this with the whole group. I want to make it abundantly clear that being with a Denver Police Department, Phoenix, and a state trooper before I'm in Kansas, I've had the experience to work with a lot of agencies that don't utilize technology very well. So I'm used to the old school methods. And why I say that is important because I want everybody to know that I'm here on my day off. I'm not being paid. I'm not being compensated by SkyeBrowse in any form or manner. And I was a very staunch critic of this before when it was brought to my attention. But I'm its biggest advocate at this point. Being an old school ACTAR kind of guy, we trust through verification. We hardline method everything, total station map everything, and then do the drone. And every time the drone has been spot on. And I have started to trust in my technology a little bit more with this. So this is my first fatal using this software. I had to put the cars at our impound lot back together to figure out approach angles. So if you're looking at the screen, the car on the left is a 1983 Ford LTD, better known as a beater with a heater. That was driven by 4 drunk young adults, ran a light and at one of our bypass interchanges, which is a flyover for our highway, and the pickup's coming off the highway at 55 miles an hour and hits him. The only death was the drunk driver in the car, but it almost killed the other three occupants in that car. So Bobby, if you'll do me a favor, like I showed you before, what I did here is I put a straight line through center of mass on both vehicles and was able to figure out through Pythagorean's theorem, if you know two sides of a triangle, you can calculate its angle. And that's how I did my approach angles. It saved me probably 2-3 days of manual labor to get the approach angles to do momentum. So this area that you're seeing is our impound lot, but the area that the fatal happened was in a 40-mile-an-hour zone right in front of our new high school. And what the fuck was that? Sorry, I apologize for my language. Kind of threw off my OODA loop there. The car was going, I figured out, to be 74 miles an hour in a 40. Ran the red light because he's mad at his girlfriend for dancing with somebody at a bar. And this pickup truck driver comes through the green light at 54 miles an hour, not speeding at all. So this software saved me a lot of time and effort figuring out approach angles. Just going straight up and down from the center of mass and drawing a line through both center of masses, getting my angle, saved me so much work that it made my life easier. And the funny thing is that the insurance companies flew out their own accident reconstructionists, and we did a crush analysis on them and came out the exact same information. So it showed that this software was doing the right thing and what I needed to do.
That's really great. I'm trying to get the gallery view. Okay, here we go. That's great. And you mentioned how you've been doing this reconstruction for a while, and you've been doing it successfully for a long time, and you've been doing it successfully without drones. And one thing that we often talk about with SkyeBrowse and drone mapping is how you can be on and off the actual location. You can clear the roadway quickly, but it's also great to see that you're taking the time putting them back together, because it doesn't necessarily, to figure out some of this information, right? You can put these back together and then you can fly your mission. Maybe if this was under a bridge, or because you mentioned it before we jumped on here, if this was in a location where it would have been more difficult to fly on the scene, you can still leverage this software and you can still leverage drones after the fact.
That's correct. The final rest for the 83 LTD station wagon was underneath the overpass. So I wasn't able, when we went out to the scene and flew the drone, we were only able to do the final rest of the pickup, which came to rest just shy of being under the bridge. So, but, you know, having a total station in conjunction with this, this software, like I said, saved me several days of work. I was able to get closure for the family faster. I was able to get to my next crash faster, and able actually provide information to both the insurance companies and, like I said, the families. Because now, as everybody knows, in accident reconstruction world, civil litigation is always prominent, more so than criminal litigation. So I was able to hold that off for a little while, because all the other accident recons that were flown out all came to the same conclusion as I did, and I used the drone and they didn't. So it just proved my point to them, even though I was a staunch critic of it at the beginning, how viable this has been, and saved my butt and saved some time.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And do you know, I know you mentioned that the fleet's growing, and maybe Bobby knows from some back end information. Do you know what drone was used?
This was the Mavic Pro 2 on this one. We also have I don't know because I'm not the drone lieutenant over the drone program. I don't think he's in here. It's a Matrice 210. That's it. There you go.
Okay.
So it's a bit. This one was our big boy. This was our $26,000 drone that we tried it with. It's more user friendly on the Mavic 2, which is what KDOT bought. But we wanted to try it with our bigger drone.
Yep.
So it's definitely used widely.
Excellent. So anybody with a Matrice 210, any folks that might be tuning in that are curious, this software, integrates well with that as well as with those other drones. The Matrice 210 definitely is not going to be your most affordable platform out there, but it's a platform that many public safety agencies and organizations do have. And I think mapping and modeling is one of the things that more folks can get into and begin to leverage because they have the tools, right? They have the hardware to get things like this done.
And what I also like too is that you can see in our impound lot how much data it picks up in the model just by the dirt debris. Because I had to have a tow truck company with a big forklift move those cars for me, and you can see all the movement, and they're not even skid marks, and even in the model, it picks everything up.
Yeah, that is great. Was there anything else in regards to this specific use, or is there any other thing you might want to just highlight at this point in regards to SkyeBrowse?
Not that I haven't covered already, no.
Okay. We'll have to get to that question later regarding the crystal sky. So that's great. That's fantastic. I'm always learning, and I learned a lot just from this short bit of sharing from this use case that you guys had out there. So thank you. And the Pythagorean theory, that triangulation, I mean, that's something that, again, you are also pushing the software yourself because you're getting the data that you need to get the data that you actually need, pulling that triangulation and measurements in order to get the angle. So that's awesome. Now, Bobby, you've got some other models up that we can jump to. What do we got here? This looks like possibly a school. Maybe is this something David's familiar with, or is this I saw an unmute?
This will be Cleburne, Texas.
Okay. Yes, this looks a little bit for this may or may not look familiar to me. If you want to go ahead, Clay, and just talk us through this model, describe what we're seeing here, and just kind of direct Bobby in any direction you might need him to go.
Okay. This is Cleburne, Texas. This was this map was made. You guys, sorry, at the range. This map was made just before a planned event that Cleburne was going to have a few months ago, based on the some of the disruptions we were having in the United States. This is SkyeBrowse. It took everything in one shot, obviously, as you can see. And what this was to have a pre-planning event on where we would deploy people. We were asked to come out. This is kind of the overlay of downtown area that it was flown, kind of like what we showed before. But basically what this is an overlay of the city so that we could pre-position people for entry routes, exit routes, that we could position folks to do counter sniper, marksman, just like the accident scene as well, uses math. So you have to, if you're going to have a precision shot, you have to know what your height is relative to how far you're shooting and what that angle is, because it does impact your trajectory. But also, so you can map how far from this point to this point, how far up, what the angle is, how much adjustment I need to put in my scope in order to make a precision shot if needed, or just an overlay of if something happens here, where are we going to get resources into, how are we going to get people out of, where are we going to stage various apparatus, quick reaction forces and or ambulance crews to get to where we need to go quickly. So we can move around. We can also see there's 2 different locations in here that they were going to that the folks were going to have problems with, some murals, some statuary, and other things. And we can have it all in one shot to be able to move from one shot to another within the same mapping system.
Yeah, and you mentioned the one shot. It's a 3-minute video in 3 minutes of drone flight from, say, add a couple minutes like we saw in the beginning where we plan the flight and then we put the drone up in the air, fly it and land it within under 10 minutes to be able to map and model this whole scene. And for planning purposes, you can go there whether it's the morning of or the day before, because these maps, these models can be generated so quickly that you know exactly where vehicles are. Maybe if it's an abandoned vehicle or it's a parked vehicle, to know the exact location of things going in, that you can't pull this stuff. There's no real resource other than creating it yourself where you can get information like this.
Yep, that's correct. Kind of like we were talking about before, with a building that doesn't exist yet. So you go back and try to go on any other mapping source and try to just get a generic picture, just get a flat picture, a screenshot. What you're looking at might not be there, because it might be X amount of months old. So you're getting real time right now within the last 30-minute data, and then going back and being able to fly the same route multiple times. You can go, here's our 1 week planning, here's our 2-day planning, here's the morning of planning, so that you can see exactly what's changed and what happened, what has not changed over the course of the event or the planned event.
In decision making, this past year, with everything happening and COVID and the ability to put information out, 910 Drones with a couple other companies, we co-hosted a kind of like a decision-making drone use webinar series where it was really trying to hit home how drones, whether it's the hardware or the software, if it's maps, models, or if it's live streaming, how this is supporting decision makers. This isn't necessarily going to support that individual. Like in this instance, this isn't a case of the drone supporting that boot on the ground, but it's supporting the decision makers, whether it's the decision makers in the organization, the department, or if it's a kind of like a co-group between the public safety and the town and the city. And it's bringing those folks in order to help them see what you're seeing to support your decisions.
Absolutely, and you can see just about everything with it. It's cool technology, and it's nice to see that we can finally use it quickly and get it in the hands of the decision makers.
And you mentioned the hazmat part earlier, and I don't know, and I think Bobby might be kind of doing something here now in order to show folks some of these features, some of the capabilities of SkyeBrowse. And here you can see you can basically draw that line out on your mapper model, and you're going to get a cross section.
Right, so this cross section is a slope map of the area. It basically takes the highest points on this line, and this updates in real time as well. So you can just move it and it'll update. So when you're positioning snipers for visual line of sight, instead of having to send officers to scout out every single room of this centralized building, decision makers, IC can instantly just do this, click on our heat map. This shows you the highest point of the 3D model, so the brightest colors are highest. So this is the centralized highest building in downtown Cleburne, and just by moving this line around, you can tell if a protester were to be, say, right before this building right here, the sniper would not have visual line of sight. So going back to an old-fashioned way of doing this, if you were to, say, be here, it'd be a lot harder to scout out where to position snipers on the ground level in this Google Street View. You could see that's the centralized building right there, versus in here, where you can just click this tool, left click, right click, and you have all the information you need right here in front of you.
And to even take it a step further, you could develop your different sectors and knowing from this fields of fires and even start to develop some preliminary sketching and things like that. So that's incredible. This is something that SkyeBrowse hadn't had in the beginning, and it's one of those things that it's the development is so quick, and this sort of integration is what's making this all the more useful, and it continues to drive. And I think there's a lot of folks that are leveraging this and are saying, hey, this is what we're seeing and this is what we're doing. And then, you know, there's this listening time and then an integration period. So this is phenomenal.
And this is just a secondary aspect of this. This is obviously made primarily for hazmat, fire, those type of things. So that's, you know, when this tanker erupts or it falls over, it cracks open and it's leaking out fluid, you know, how big a area, where's it going to go? What do I need to start putting dams in and hazmat precautions and down slope? And this thing super quick, get out there, fly it. I need equipment or apparatus at this point, you know, downslope in order to get it. So this stuff is just kind of secondary to that. I mean, that's hazmat, fire, bread and butter all day.
Yes, and that's what you did mention earlier, is how if it's whether that vehicle's on a roadway, if that vehicle's in a yard or on a location, you can fly quickly and you can know exactly, you know, that elevation change, where is things going to drain to, and then what kind of impact is that going to have on the surrounding area, and cut things off quicker.
Exactly.
So in this case, this is an entire facility right here is hazmat. So if anything exploded or leaked, you can tell. If this was the initial outflow, you can see that the runoff would actually go downwards slightly based off of one quick 3D model for pre-planning. So you already know where the runoff will pull up, and you don't have to wait for it to stay in motion. And what this does is it saves you so much time, because when you're at a hazmat scene and you wait too long, everybody dies. So this saves a lot of time as well as lives.
And we're seeing the similar things within like electric and utilities, to where we're developing an archive, right? If we take drones and we go fly our lines and we fly our substations, we're developing an archive so that in the future, folks that move into new positions don't have to go do the walking and doing that again. They can jump in the office and they can bring up these locations and they can see exactly what everybody else is seeing. Now, do things change? Yes. So, you know, you can go out there, and that's how you as an organization individual, you can keep your own up-to-date things. And I think that's what David will be touching on a bit, is how are we using drones to develop that archive or develop that I'm just drawing a blank. How do we create a system, right? So when something does happen, we can just jump in there and we can see what we need to see. So
yeah, you don't need like an outdated CAD system with year-old satellite imagery for this. And I'm sure Dave will talk a lot more about this in a sec.
So that's really good. Great for that pre-planning. Great for even post-planning after the, planning before and then flying it afterwards to see how things did pan out. But we've got, I just checked the Q&A here. Okay, so Charles Duke asked, I see the video was 3 minutes. How quick can I get an update? If I need an immediate look and went and completed this same task, how quick can I look at the new video?
You can look at the video right away. It's saved onto your drone's SD card, so you can play that video and see all the information you need right away. If you have 10 minutes to spare, you can upload the video and you'll get, that video will turn into a 3D model and you'll be able to access every single tool in this dashboard right here.
So you can go out, you can fly it. As soon as you fly it, you'll have that video on your SD card. But once you take that SD card, put it in your computer and upload it to SkyeBrowse, that is the time when you will now have the video in the cloud and your model's beginning to process. Right.
Yes, correct. Clay, we still have this unnamed model right here. Do you want to talk about it or do we want to move forward?
Yeah, I can do that pretty quick. This was probably about 3 months ago. This was a fatality accident in a industrial yard. And we basically mapped this real quick so that we can get the information. The odd thing with this one, or the unique thing with this one, is that it was very foggy that day, extremely foggy, and in doing the map, in order to get the good size detailed map, part of the map had to fly over the top of the building. I had concerns with it being foggy outside, very foggy, and also mapping the top of the building, and because part of the circle was cut out because of the interference with the building, but it mapped it fine. We got all our points and this is live view, obviously, or was at that point. So we got that's exactly where everything stopped. And we've got plenty of target points that we can measure from after that. So it made the investigation a lot quicker. Didn't have to bring out any of the other equipment to 3D map it or to map it with GPS coordinates. So it was super quick to use, real easy on kind of a bad deal.
Quickly you can get out there, fly it, get the data, and then, move forward with, driving on and taking care of what needs to get taken care of in order to move ahead. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Now we're going to jump to, got David here with what looks like some pre-planning modeling going on here. So I'm going to have Bobby click through here, and David, you can tell us about what do we see here, and how are you leveraging SkyeBrowse?
Okay. That's actually an elementary school right across the street from my middle school. Like I said earlier, we're going in the process of uploading all videos of all of our schools in the event of a mass casualty. Of course, we don't ever want to have to face that, but in the event that something were to occur, we would have these maps readily available to us immediately to the command staff that are going to be on the scene and putting the troops on the ground where they're needed. Of course, you're going to have people inside of the building trying to coordinate where they are, but here with this 3D model, we know where north is, we know where south is based upon geographical points from outside. We can actually deploy people inside of the building and know what we're looking at from the outside at the same time. like I said, this isn't something we know that this could happen in the future. We hope it doesn't ever happen in Little. We just want to be prepared for the worst case scenarios. Also, something I was thinking about that I didn't mention in the beginning when we first came online. I'm going to start working with our SWAT teams, having been a SWAT member with the Dallas Police Department in the past, pre-planning for high-speed warrants. We can use this for the same thing, so we know where to deploy resources upon hitting the ground at warrant site. Also for barricaded gunmen, where we can deploy resources as well.
Yeah, and David, your audio is kicking in and out a little.
Like I said, we've got 15 to 20 schools in our town of Little Elm, and I'm in the process of going around and mapping all these out right now.
That's awesome. Your video,
I'm having a little bit
in and out. So
sick child. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I stopped your video just to help with the bandwidth, and we can hear you much better.
Okay.
But it's like you mentioned, these aren't things that, to have some sort of idea and plan in place for these sort of scenarios is the best thing that can happen, because that, trying to figure everything out in the moment, it's not easy. Can it be done? Yes, it can be done, and it has been done. But is it worth taking a few minutes, a little bit of time to go out and do this and better prepare yourself? 100%. And this is something that even here in Fayetteville, population just under 250,000 people, we have a lot of schools in our city. And the Fayetteville Police Department has gone out. When I last connected, when I last knew, they weren't modeling every school, but they were going out and they were capturing photos and they were taking video in order to have some sort of an idea. And videos and photos are great, but it doesn't replace something like this.
Correct. Like I said earlier, having been a SWAT officer in Dallas, we did our drive-by 1 or 2 days before. You're still trying to figure out where you're going to deploy resources on the backside or the sides of a building. Here with the modeling, this is just amazing footage that you have, and it's at your disposal immediately when you need it. Like I said, for a school mass casualty incident, we don't have to send somebody out to try to figure out where to put the resources. We've got it right here and available for us. The commander can sit here and look at this map and go, okay, to the north, I need 7 or 8 guys to cover off these windows. We can see where our entry points are, where our extraction points maybe be based upon the information that's coming from the inside as well. So that was the first thing that came to mind with me as a school resource officer. What can I use this for to help our department if in the event that something like this were to ever happen? And then expounding on the warrant stuff and barricaded gunman stuff, same thing. Driving by that location prior to a warrant a day or two before, trying to give yourself up. I can go up with the drone at a couple 100 feet, not be heard, not be seen, and even fly this from a couple blocks away and produce a 3D image of our target location. So it's going to help us out greatly here in Little Elm.
Right. Yeah, that's an excellent point too. The 3-minute flight. If you can get up there in 3 minutes and then put something out in 10, 15, 20 minutes, now you've got not the pre-planning, but now you have this is it. This is the plan of action. This is how we're going to proceed, because vehicles can be in different locations. Leaves can be off of trees. There's just all sorts of different things. And I think you can start using this to get the idea of, well, if they're here, right? Because now we know they're, and I'm moving my mouse around like as if our audience can see it. But, you know, based on where they're at now and how things are, you can adapt. And I think one great thing to point out too is from a triage standpoint, you know, not wanting to get in the way. Where are we putting, you know, ambulance and first responder personnel? How are we staging things like that is also great for these types of maps and making these things possible. And then knowing that, do you know, David, off the top of your head? I'm sure Bobby could do his tech guru stuff and get the information, the platform that was used for this?
I used SkyeBrowse on this one.
With the, was it a Mavic 2 Pro?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I used my Mavic 2 Pro. Yes.
Mavic 2 Pro. Yeah, and that's phenomenal because that's a $1,600 drone. And if we look at all of these models, all the videos are either a minute and 29 seconds. Here you've got the high time of the day. You get the long flight award for the 4 minutes, 43 seconds, which, you know, in drone battery, that's becoming a drop in the bucket. So with a $1,600 drone, you don't have to have 5 batteries. You don't have to have 2 batteries. You could do this with a single battery.
That's cool.
You might be better off having a second drone with 1 battery in case something happens to the drone. But it's huge from a cost standpoint, from a tool. This is a $1,600 tool that you now integrate, you know, an amazing software like SkyeBrowse, which cost-wise, you're looking at hardware, software, they're right there side by side for, you know, you're under $4,000 and you're doing any one of these 3, 4, you know, 5 use cases that we just showed and demonstrated and talked about.
And I think there's a thing that you don't really think about it until on the backside of it, but there's the criminal investigation aspect of it. Is you want a complete overlay that has as real time as possible, because whatever, once it stops and everything is taken care of, it's still going to be a criminal investigation at some point, and you're going to want the most up-to-date data you can possibly find continuously to drive your investigation, because it's going to go to court sometime, whether it's civil, whether it's criminal. It's going to go to court sometime, and we need to be able to show that we've done, as first responders, public safety, done everything we can to document the scene, to do a good, thorough investigation, that this is actually what it was, where it was, how it was when we were there. It's not a picture from Google Maps from 9 months ago. This is what it was on that day. You're going to take your pictures from the bottom, but it's good to also have pictures from the top.
Excellent. Couple rounds going off there. That's great. The gun popping just had me. I had a thought, but I lost.
Victory pop.
Victory pops. The use cases. I was thinking about the question. So this will kind of go to anybody that wants to chime in. It's the big question for mapping. What is the accuracy of a SkyeBrowse map? And when we talk about accuracy, I want to also talk about what data is it that we're pulling, because in Michael's case, what's the accuracy of the angles, right? For you to be able to just draw and pull angles, that's, you know, super information. That's not necessarily important as far as inches and feet, but what do you guys have, what input, and how might you answer this question about the accuracy of SkyeBrowse? And Michael, you can kick it off.
If I may, I'm going to go ahead and pipe up real quick, because I'm going to have to leave here in a few minutes for another meeting at 2. But here's the thing, and I'm going to put it in layman's terms for cop jargon. It's nat's ass perfect. It's maybe an 1/18 of an inch off, depending on how, what degree you're at. But I mean, like, it's not anything that's, I've used the total station. I've used baseline and triangulation methods to confirm it before I even say that I was even going to have the department bite off on this software. So I'm kind of a geek when it comes to that, because accidents is something that I'm passionate about. And before I'll try something new, I want to put it through its ringers. And being as anal retentive, for lack of a better word, than I am with it, it's right on. It's never been off every time I've tried it. So, and we've been using it for, I think, a little over a year now, maybe a little less. I think we're at our year mark. I don't know, but we've had quite a bit of opportunities to keep trying it. So, and we get called out on for drones. I'd say we probably have at least 5 to 6 drone flights a week on average. So we use the shit out of it because we want to show proof of concept to KDOT, who's paying for it. So the more flights we get out of it, the better. So I'll get activated on serious bodily injury crashes. So anything with more than an airbag rub, I'm going to be coming out and working on it with the drone pilots. So every time I've done it, long story short, it's been right on.
Excellent. That's excellent. I appreciate that. And if you got to peel out, we completely understand. Thank you very much for joining us. I know that our audience appreciates and got a lot of insightful information from what you shared.
All right. Take care, guys.
Clay, you want to tell us a little about accuracy and how, it's playing a role in what you're doing?
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback on what Michael said. Same thing on as far as the crash investigations. On the criminal investigation side, you can fly everything you need, and there's a bunch of stuff going on. So when you go to court, juries nowadays, they expect to see all the cool wow factor, kind of like this stuff. So they want to see one good big event like this. The cool thing about this is you have one big event. If it's a protracted thing, you're going to have kids falling over, on a, heaven forbid, an active shooter like this. You might have somebody shooting out on the other side and then running over here, and then there's an engagement over here, and then somebody falls over here, and that might be literally all over a huge campus like this. If you go to try to take pictures on the outside of that, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of pictures where the jury doesn't have any reference point to look at. Where is this picture in relation to that? Well, now a DA, for example, could go through this entire thing like this, go through it bit by bit. Here is a shell casing from here. Here is where this gunfight happened. Here's where this gunfight happened. Here's where this person fell. This is where this happened. And then be able to go zoom in, see the spot, and then zoom back out and see the overall relation to where it was with something else. So, when you think about this being, okay, it does accidents. I'm not the accident guy, so I don't get as excited about as he did. But, I do criminal investigations as well. And that is what really excites me. So you can really do an overflight of this and have your entire crime scene, external crime scene in one picture, zoom into the spot, zoom back out for the general, strategic view from the top.
Also, what I have here is a condo fire that I mapped out for Somerville County Prosecutor's Office. We set up a GCP, a 2x2 GCP, just to validate accuracy, because we're mapping out such a huge area right here. This was about $6 million in damages 3 weeks before the condo was opening up. There was we believe it's a HVAC failure that caused all of this, potentially an AC failure. The investigation hasn't concluded yet, but just based off of the 3D model and the GCP that you see right here, it's 2x2, so you can see that the accuracy is basically spot on. It's really down to the pixel of your mouse cursor, so it's really, really accurate.
Yeah, that's because those, I believe, measure, like you said, 2x2. But even when you're looking at edges, like a 0.1 foot, right? That's the edge of something. So that's phenomenal. Is there anything, David, that you might want to add in regards to accuracy or how important is is high level accuracy in what it is that you're using SkyeBrowse for?
Yeah, kind of expounding on what Clay had said earlier as far as the after effect of a mass casualty, the potential for lawsuits, the potential for the criminal court cases and stuff. Like you said, with the pictures that you're taking on the ground, courts and juries love to see pictures. They love to see video, and alongside of this, we can use this for measurements of just how far away something was from the scene if something were to occur outside of a school or outside of a building. So I just kind of to follow up on what Clay said, all the information that we're obtaining through this platform with the measurements, they're so precise right down to the millimeter. I think they're going to come in handy. I took it upon myself to go outside of my school after doing one of the videos that I took, and I wanted to just measure off a square of cement to see how close it was. And it really was within about a millimeter. It's pretty amazing technology.
Awesome. Let's see. For wrapping things up here, I've got SkyeBrowse. So we went through success stories. We've been digging into any questions we had. I mean, at this time, is there any other questions that folks had about SkyeBrowse, the software itself, flying it, the operations of it? Anything else, go ahead and just throw those questions in there. But if not, if there's no other questions, we can just jump into a couple closing statements by the panelists that are still remaining. And we may.
I see a question from Sasa saying, can you install SkyeBrowse on the Crystal Sky? The answer is no. We did that on purpose because SkyeBrowse, while it's really easy to use, it is incredibly processor heavy. So it uses a lot of background processing. There's a lot of algorithms in the background working on making sure that your drone flies perfectly. Unfortunately, Crystal Sky is it's running an operating system that's about 7 years old now. I've said it since it was about 6 years old, and now it's 7 years old. So it's not great for any sort of processing whatsoever. We recommend using an iPad or an iPhone for that. Another question, can you blend?
Oh, you were going to go with the blending of videos?
Yes. Did you have anything to follow up on regarding the Crystal Sky?
No. I was going to jump into another question, but if you want to touch on that one real quick, I think you can answer that one pretty quickly, right?
Yes, 2 videos at different altitudes. That is possible. Currently, if you tap SkyeBrowse, it is blending 1 video of different altitudes. For these 2 videos at different altitudes, they have to be done with the same drone flight, so the drone cannot land. I'll get a little nerdy here. It's because DJI uses a barometer when measuring altitude instead of traditional methods. So what happens is if you've noticed if there's like a cold front or basically like a storm incoming, your altitude will actually change, even if the drone is hovering in place. So if the altitudes are different based off of DJI's relative altitude, then we cannot make a 3D model. Whereas if it's done at the same drone flight without the drone landing, then you can make a 3D model that way.
Awesome. The next one I wanted to do was jump into was from Charles, and he asked, does the clarity of the recorded video get better at a lower altitude? I would say just similar to picture mapping, the closer you're getting that sensor to your subject or to the ground, the higher the resolution or your clarity will be increased. And I was looking at, it seemed good. Hi, okay. We've got a question from Antonio. What's the time difference on scene between SkyeBrowse and other photogrammetry solutions? I I don't know, Clay or David, have you used any of the other softwares available out there, and how would you compare the time, the collection time or time on scene to SkyeBrowse?
Is David there, or I didn't know if he was still there?
No, go ahead, Clay.
The only thing I can, when I left Bedford in 2018, we had a homicide of a young girl, and we mapped an entire apartment complex with a different mapping software, I'll say that uses pictures. And it took us like 1,200 pictures and about 4 hours in order to map. The same size area was the Cleburne mapping that we did, and that was done. And I can't remember, what'd you say, 4 minutes, 8 minutes, something like that. What was the Cleburne map time? It was a few minutes. It certainly wasn't 4 hours.
It was 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, so you're talking 4.5 hours, multiple battery changes in a 210, and approximately 1,200 pictures to cover the same area as 3 minutes and one long video. So it does remarkably different or similar in a very way shorter time frame.
Excellent. Thank you, Clay. And it does look like we don't have any additional questions at this time. I want to give each of our panelists an opportunity to kind of give a closing statement, just to wrap up the thoughts, ideas, and information that got put out in this webinar. And then also for the folks tuning in, here's the contact information for our panelists. If you want to shoot them an email or inquire or get some insight into, any operations.
It looks like David and mine's emails are opposite on our names, so just keep that in mind. You got my email with David's. So
here we go. Switch those up. Now, Dave, Clay, why don't you go ahead and just give us some final thoughts in regards to today's webinar.
First of all, thank you for having me here. As with Michael, I don't get any compensation. I'm not receiving money. I am working today. Obviously, we're out at the range, but I'm doing this because I believe in the program. Number one thing I would say is that this is just far, far, far more than just some 3D crash modeling. It does pre-event planning, current event planning, post-event planning. It can do stuff for your city's infrastructure. You got a new apartment complex coming up. You can, if they want to get a picture or a video, a wide browse of it, every month for the entire 8 months that it's being done, you could see what it's doing. Emergency management's background, where all your infrastructure is, what it looks like on a current basis. Schools, like David said, it does a tremendous amount of work. I would suggest, getting the trial and putting it through your paces. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And then lastly, we are in the process right now of getting approval from the city council to, after we take 3D maps and 3D models of this, to get basically a 2D map and put it into our Crash Open Records Act. So when insurance companies, individuals, attorneys, whatever, might want to get it, you are allowed to recruit a little bit of that money just based on what your state says is appropriate. But we are, like video, getting video, it's X amount of $1 per minute to reproduce that video. It's just a little bit of recouping the money. And we're in the process of doing that for our 3D mapping. It recoups a little bit of money for us, and it allows the people that are out there having crashes, insurance companies, attorneys, to access this to make their own determinations as well.
That's excellent, Clay. That's taking it even further and taking that data and making it even more usable. And again, if you think about that, that's going to support the public, those individuals who are either victims in the accidents themselves. So that's great. David, can you just kind of give us a final thoughts here in closing?
How do I follow up with that? Clay, you kind of stole all my thunder. Great product all the way around. I mean, I've said it over and over. Believe in it. Didn't have to look at it very far too much to see what it's capable of doing. I was introduced to the platform by our emergency management coordinator for our department. And I'm sure he's sitting here listening as well. He's going to try to figure out a way to recoup the cost of the program that it costs the town to purchase. But and I can see, having what Clay said, that we'll probably try to work something out to where we can do that as well. And I think it's just a great platform for all assets of public service, fire departments, police departments, just your city employees that are out doing stuff in the building process, permitting process and whatnot. I can see how this platform can be used by just about any agency. Great product. I love it.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing, how it is that you're leveraging SkyeBrowse with Little Elm Police Department. And that kind of brings us to our closing here. I want to thank our panelists and thank our audience for tuning in. The reason that we're on here and we're putting out that information is for the folks that are tuning in. So thank you for participating. The folks that signed up, whether you tuned in live or not, will be getting the recording of this webinar. So if you know anybody within public safety, police, fire, hazmat, emergency management, that might benefit from hearing some of this information, please do share that link with them. Thank you, Clay. Thank you, David. Thank you to Michael. Thank you, Bobby, for joining us. Appreciate your time and attention. As soon as 910 Drones gets some shirts made up, we'll get those shirts sent out to you guys so we can attempt to compensate you for a little bit of the time that you've given to us. And to the folks that are in the audience, reach out to 910 Drones with any questions you might have or comments or issues, and to learn more about SkyeBrowse, the software. Everyone that participated and tuned in today will be getting a 1-month trial to the SkyeBrowse platform. So we really hope that people take advantage of that. If you have any questions, call or email us at the information shown here. Again, thank you for everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day and fly safe.